RTS games are amazing. And by the end of this video, if I haven't at least convinced you to give this genre a shot, I'm sorry, I have failed you. It cannot be denied that RTS games create some of the most spectacular moments in gaming. The power fantasy of the genre is very unique to its players, whether it's going and besieging a castle in medieval fantasy, storming the field with tanks in World War II, or coordinating a spectacular assault in the modern day. You truly get some amazing moments that you both create and control. But I think we can all agree that the elephant in the room is how frustrating it can all be. The barrier to entry is far higher with RTS games simply because of how many elements you have to keep track of. You have to maintain, protect, and scale your economy across a huge map. Oh, did you sit in your base like a turtle to keep any unwanted armies at bay? Too bad, because now your enemy owns 80% of the map and will drown you with endless waves of enemies until you're starved out of resources. You need to understand when to either push a strategic advantage or be defensive and tech up your army. You need to be mindful of what your opponent is doing by scouting and denying his greedy expansion, or prepare for his assault with the appropriate units, because if you invested all your resources early game into a unit that gets easily countered, the defeat screen is close behind. You also need to be aware of the dreaded snowball, because one or two mistakes at key points in the game, which are never explained by the way, can lead to an inevitable loss 10 or 20 minutes later. So sorry if you thought a comeback was possible, because it's not. Your opponent has been slightly ahead of you all game, and he's going to keep pressing that advantage until he has an overwhelming army at his disposal, then crush you. On top of all that, even if you play everything right, when the big battle occurs, it's over faster than it began, which can lead to some huge letdowns. The complexity of the learning curve combined with the unforgiving nature of the genre has led many a gamer to say, "Not for me," and walk away, and the genre as a whole, with all of its glorious potential, was tossed directly into the bin. I believe this is where Broken Arrow, the game we're going to talk about today, is really going to shine and truly breathe some new life into a genre that I think many gamers can and should enjoy. My hope would be that this game will be an entry point for those who have never played it due to how off-putting it all is, or those who walked away after a couple infuriating experiences. Let's take a look at the 5 reasons why Broken Arrow should be your first RTS. Number 1. Strategy simplified. Most of what I described in the introduction all leads up to a key moment at the end of the match that us gamers all care about. Did we win? Or did we lose? Every PvP gamer plays for this and needs to simply know, what do I need to do to win the game? So that at the end of this 30-minute to 1-hour experience, I see a victory screen instead of a defeat screen. Get some of that dopamine. All of the strategy in these games revolve around making this happen, are usually extremely complicated, not too unlike learning how to go and juggle 3 balls while riding a unicycle on the side of a mountain with someone throwing darts at your face, and also being mindful of an impending avalanche. For the true masochist, this sounds like a fun challenge, but for the rest of us, screw that. Broken Arrow takes the formula on how to win the game and breaks it down into 2 key elements: kills and objectives. The flow of the game is broken out into 3 phases, and each phase will conclude with a score that is given to each team. Every unit you bring onto the battlefield has a value associated to it. So killing enemy units will give your team that value as score, and your units being destroyed gives your enemy team that score. This is all added up, and if your team has 1,000, 2,000, or 3,000 more kill points than the enemy team, you get 1, 2, or 3 points in that category. There are also territory control points on the map, and I believe there can be anywhere from 5 to 8 of these, depending on the map. If your team controls 1, 2, or 3 more territory points than the other team, you will get 1, 2, or 3 more points in that category. Pretty simple, right? So at the end of each phase, based on the amount of points your team earned, your score is recorded and a new phase begins. So let's talk about the snowball. In other games, if the team gets an early game advantage, that can and usually will lead to an inevitable end game win. So how does Broken Arrow solve this? Well, the points you can earn match the tier, right? Phase 1 is the first third of the game and is worth 1 point per tier. Phase 2 is 2. And phase 3 is 3 points per tier. Make sense? So, for example, if by the end of phase 1, blue team dominates in all categories and comes out with a +6, phase 2 increases the points gained to +2 per tier, as you can, see on the screen. Meaning if the red team makes a comeback, they gain up to 12 points and can actually be substantially ahead of blue team. Phase 3 takes this even further to a potential +18. Usually what that means is that all of the work the enemy team may have done in phase 1 and phase 2 to put your team behind does not mean they are guaranteed a victory if your team pulls it all together, counters their strategy, and destroys more units than the enemy, and then captures more objectives, leading to some pretty epic end-game climaxes.
Giggity, 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 giggity.
Broken Arrow solves the confusing and sometimes very unclear question of how do I win the game by clearly defining what you need to do at every phase of the match to beat the other team. Streamlined economy and tech. So let's take every super annoying and honestly kind of worthless thing that you have to do in strategy games and list them all out, and then all of us can throw it away at the same time. Very therapeutic if you ask me. Okay, worker management. Oh, hey, let's constantly have to build these useless combat units that we need to constantly micromanage all over the map to gain resources. Are there any workers in this game? Absolutely not. Let's throw them all in the bin. Base management and expansion. Let's spend countless amounts of time going and meticulously building a laid out base and trying to cover key points of the map, all while your enemy is building an army that is slowly steamrolling you like the Mongolians, breaking every wall that you have, invading your lands, burning everything you own and that you thought was valuable. Are there certain structures that you need to build and manage and lay out in a base? Are there resource plots on the map that you need to build buildings around and defend? Nope, thank God, throw it in the bin. Teching. Do you have a cool idea for a tier 1 strategy that you want to try and surprise your enemy with? Too bad he got to tech 2 and built 1 unit that kills your 5. And you can go home and cry as the snowball starts and the game is over at the 3-minute mark. So let's look at Broken Arrow. Does Broken Arrow have a crazy tech timing that you need to constantly sweat over? Nope. Let's all rejoice together and throw that crap in the bin. Now, I'm definitely missing some other annoying things in strategy games that Broken Arrow does away with, and I would love to hear what you think about that in the comments. But Broken Arrow's economy all comes down to one thing. how many units do you have on the battlefield right now? The simplicity to this is that the more units you field, the less resource gain you have. So you're kind of putting your cards on the table, and this drains your income per second. So the question now becomes, how many units do I need to have on the battlefield to accomplish my objective, as we talked about before, which is kill more enemy units and secure objectives. Teching is also solved by giving you access to every unit you've chosen right at the start of the match. In general, the higher quote-unquote tech units are balanced by being more expensive. An armored car that you would normally find in a tier 1 scenario from another RTS is going to cost you like 70 points on average, where a heavy armored main tank with a huge cannon and defenses is going to cost you like 400. The brilliance to this is that you can sell any unit that you've brought onto the field for a refund of its value, minus a couple factors like its health and its ammo usage, which gives you not only a refund for its point value, but gives you your income per second back. So that 400 point tank, if you were to sell it, you might get anywhere from 250 to all 400 points back if it's full health and fully armed. Also, if your units die while on the field, you instantly get the points per tick back. You don't get the points of the unit back, so if that 400 point tank dies, and let's say it's worth 10 points per second, trust me, I'm gonna play the math out on this one once the game comes out. But let's say if that tank dies, sure, you don't get the 400 points back, but you get its points per second back. So, let's say you used a couple of expensive 350 point helicopters to blow up a couple tanks that were pushing far into your line. But now that that's done, you can actually sell those helicopters and gain its income back, plus the points that it was worth, or you can keep them there as a deterrent for future tank pushes. The choice is truly yours to manage your economy with more or less expensive units that you feel you need at that moment in the game to accomplish your objectives. Engaging gameplay and spectacle. Okay, so everything I just described would not mean much if the actual moment-to-moment gameplay and the spectacle of the whole experience wasn't totally awesome. If you watch any trailers of Broken Arrow, you will hear and see just how well this game plays and sounds. The thing that immerses me the most in the game when I'm controlling my units is the feedback of how everything responds to my commands and the realism of how everything moves. Helicopters don't turn on a dime. Tanks need time to reface a certain direction to have their heaviest armor towards the enemy, and explosions are truly a sight to behold. Oh, we do love some nuclear around here. When infantry fight, they have rockets, grenade launchers, and machine guns all working together to really engage you in the immersion of a firefight. Whether it's in a forest or an urban environment, you can see tracers flying, you can see smoke trails from those rockets, and you can hear and see the explosions of their grenade launchers firing away. Tanks break this up with the roar of their cannons. APCs chime in with their ATGMs and autocannons. Helicopters make a spectacular show with their rockets and guns. SAM sites alarm every air player with the howl of their rockets, firing at you from long range. Ballistic and cruise missiles can be seen from across the map as they inevitably travel to their point of destination. And artillery shells thump and thump and thump until there is nothing left of whatever they were shooting at. Pay close attention, and you can even hear the crack of a sniper rifle from a recon team that snuck into the enemy backline, blowing up all of their artillery and SAM sites. Of course, all of this would pale in comparison to the awe and splendor of an airstrike or bombing run that truly makes 10 people all stop and stare despite anything else going on, as these moments command your attention. Although the fact that these moments can be very destructive for your team, it's never a heartbreak to see a bomber run left to right, blowing up everything you held dear because of the fact that you know it's okay, a comeback is possible. Not only that, but even if you see 500 points worth of your units just get bombed to smithereens, if one of your teammates flies a fighter jet from the corner of the screen and shoots that bomber down, you may have gained all those points back, and the only thing you're left with is the amazing view of all the action. Depending on the role that you're playing for the team, dictates the scale of your engagement. Do you like to be close in on the action, seeing everything at the ground level? Cool, you can play as the ground player and micro your tanks and your infantry and your APCs for maximum effectiveness by flanking enemies on their weak armor, placing all of your infantry teams in ambush locations, to jump the enemy at a perfect time. You can be close to the action, and honestly the game looks even better and better the more you zoom in. On the other hand, do you enjoy seeing the whole spectacle of the battlefield unfold before your eyes? Playing either a support or recon and airstrike role will allow you to stay very zoomed out and keep an eye on your teammates and the battle at hand. You can really take in everything going on and manage your artillery strikes, watch your SAM sites, and keep an eye for overextended enemies to take advantage of, or a teammate in need to assist and reinforce. The scale of the battle at this distance allows you to really immerse yourself into the battlefield as infantry, tanks, helicopters, AA, and planes all come together in a dramatic effort to win. Broken Arrow allows you to enjoy the spectacle and gameplay of RTS the way you want. Playing as a team. One very annoying thing about RTS games is the way that developers try to integrate and synergize team play. I think it's no rare fact that most RTS games are simply designed for 1v1 experiences, because developers don't have a great way to solve this. I think some games have gotten closer than others, with games like Age of Empires, allowing you to lean in more towards a synergistic playstyle of I'll build infantry, I'll build cavalry, and I'll go navy. But even then, you can easily end up with a team all attacking one player at the same time, and then what was a 4v4 is now a 4v3, with again the inevitable snowball just now having kicked in and a loss swiftly underway. Broken Arrow's team of developers are previous pro gamers, and for some reason they decided to band together and make a game with all of these things about team play that we don't really like in mind. And coming from their background, you can really tell team play was a huge part of their focus here, and is why it is one of the key reasons you should be playing this. Even if you don't necessarily have friends to play with all the time, all the previous things I talked about lead to a decision you make, which is what type of gameplay role do I want to fill? The nice thing is that the flexibility that the game allows within its army creation allows you to build a deck or army that can cover multiple roles. And because of the way the phases are laid out, that even if you're in a team of randoms, you can all adapt to each other and the enemy on the fly. Most of my experience with Broken Arrow in the betas was playing solo with 4 other people I was not coordinating with. Normally this would lead to a disjointed style of gameplay, but because there's a lot of decision making in what units do I want to use and when, I was naturally inclined to observe the battlefield and what my teammates are doing, and then adapt around that. Of course, in addition to what the enemy was doing throughout the match. Other RTS games don't do this well, and teams of 2 or more players end up being scaled versions of 1v1s, and teams get punished for helping each other because you always run the risk of losing your lane and contributing to the enemy's snowball if you go to help out a teammate. Another thing is that other RTS games don't really get the balance for 3v3 or 4v4. So units and strategies that work in 1v1 don't at all work in 4v4. The developers of Broken Arrow have made it clear that they have designed the game to be a division of labor. In other words, there are key components to the game that need to be addressed in order to win those objectives we talked about earlier. You need to have a front line with infantry and tanks that can hold ground that your team has captured and secure those objectives. You need to have a variety of anti-air, long range, short range, and spread over key sites of the map to shoot down all those very expensive planes and helicopters. You need to have recon, getting into the enemy backline to scout out what units the enemy is using and where they are setting up their AA and artillery batteries. You need to have someone who is saving up points to have a quick response force, either with helicopters or planes or fast APCs. In a coordinated team, these elements truly shine, and I will be interested to see how the devs tackle pre-made teams queuing up together. Hopefully they aren't pooled into the random lobby, because there is a clear advantage to a team that understands and plays to these roles that the devs have designed the game around. Now, that's not to say that a very well-executed meme team of 5 recon and airstrike type players that occasionally fields some tanks can't win, but the stock standard idea is that each team member understands and executes a role. This makes Broken Arrow a very rewarding game for friends to play together. Creating your army and experimentation. Personally, the thing that keeps me either coming back to the table for more in the RTS genre or walking away from a game, no matter how good the spectacle is, how cool the economy is put together, or how awesome is the immersion, is this: am I allowed to experiment, or is the formula locked and secured and there's no experimentation to be had? Once a meta is established in an RTS and there is no variation in gameplay, meaning every match is basically going to play out the same, is when you'll notice the player base really start to decline. Most of the time, a development team will realize that their formula has become stale, or there's a meta that is driving people away from the game. So what they'll end up doing is rebalancing a whole bunch of units to quote-unquote shake up the meta. Sometimes this can lead to a gameplay style that you enjoy all of a sudden becoming a dumpster fire that doesn't even make sense. One very particular RTS that I think suffers from this more than any other game I have literally ever played is Company of Heroes 3. This game can't make up its mind on what does what and what units counter what units. One patch cycle, machine guns are very deadly suppression machines that don't allow the traversal of any infantry in their cone of fire at all whatsoever. The next patch, it's like all of the machine gun guys got really hammered and blind. They can't see anything, they can't shoot anything, and they might as well have loaded their gun with rubber bullets. One patch cycle after that, the machine gun guys found their glasses and loaded their weapons with real ammo. But the artillery tanks are now shooting nuclear bombs across the screen and don't bother building anything that can't run like a track star because it's going to get blown up. Tanks that are known to be fast and agile are all of a sudden competing with boats on their turn radius times, doomed to be worthless and a waste of resources. Airstrikes that were once feared and teams had to prepare for now end up shooting a dummy rocket that doesn't do anything whatsoever. And all of a sudden, these planes went from being made of aluminum with some armor and health, are now being made of paper, and a stray sneeze will knock them out of the sky. This leads to a game that changes so often in unrealistic ways that it redefines what those units even are and do, and this does not create a consistent, immersive experience. The game punishes you for not playing it like a full-time job and keeping up with all of the adjustments to the builds and meta. So, how fun is it to pick up a game after a couple of months off just to realize that everything you knew about it has changed, and now all of the guys in chat are screaming at you for being a dumb noob and trolling them by building units that were nerfed in the previous patch? Okay. So, how does Broken Arrow solve this? Am I saying that the game is never going to get rebalanced and units that have a certain effectiveness are always going to be consistent? No, not at all, actually. In the past year that the game was going into its betas, the balance has been changed quite a bit. What I'm saying is, the balance of the game isn't defined by the devs constantly changing stuff. The balance and fun of experimentation comes from your ability to customize each unit that you decide to put in your army. And when a match is over, your instinct is not going to be, oh, that one unit is overpowered. It's, okay, how do I counter that and adjust my deck and units to make up for those weaknesses that I noticed? This can lead to players refining their army compositions to suit specific maps and specific roles, and building a library of army compositions to take into a battle. I expect players will end up having a deck per map and per role for that map, which will lead to some pretty awesome deck creation videos, guides, and unique playstyles that individuals can come up with. The community can really engage and share with, hey, you're having a problem with tank pushes on Parnu? Check out my video, I got the counter for that. Broken Arrow truly is your oyster, and the devs have already said they're adding more factions and nations in the game, which will keep the spice of variety constantly flowing. So there we have it. 5 reasons why I think Broken Arrow should be the first RTS game that you ever play. And if you've played RTS games before, that just means that it should be the first RTS game you really play and enjoy. I come from a long history of RTS, but as soon as I saw this one, I really thought there could be something special here. And the devs seem to be fulfilling that desire. I really hope to see a lot of fresh faces to RTS on day one. I really hope to see a lot of people teaming up with their friends to pull off crazy strategies, and I really want to hear from you guys. What are the types of videos and content that seem to be fun or that you're looking forward to with this game? I started this channel primarily to cover and engage with the Broken Arrow community, so I'm really interested in hearing about your thoughts and opinions. I hope you give it a shot. I hope you play it for well into the year, and I look forward to seeing you on the battlefield.